Welcome to This Explainer. Today, I'm putting on my neutral financial advisor hat to break down the honest, unvarnished math behind the classic debate, real estate versus index funds. You know the problem with most advice out there on this topic, right? Someone usually picks a winner before they even run the numbers. But not us, not today. We're going to look at the raw math completely objectively, without picking a side, to see exactly how these two powerhouse investments really stack up against each other. To demystify all of this, we're going to follow a clear path today. We'll look at a tale of two investors, dive into the real estate reality, explore the power of compounding, see what happens in a 20-year tie, unlock some secret advantages, and finally, figure out which path actually fits you. Let's dive in.
All right, Section 1, a tale of two investors. Let's start by setting up the exact same financial baseline for both of our guys here.
Meet Jake and Marcus. Both are 30 years old, they live in the exact same city, they make the exact same salary of $55,000, and they've both managed to save exactly $50,000 in the bank. Literally, the only difference is what they decide to do with that cash. Jake goes the real estate route. He takes his $50,000 and drops it as a 20% down payment on a solid $250,000 rental property. Marcus, well, he takes his $50,000 and dumps it straight into a total stock market index fund and sets up an automatic $300 monthly transfer from his paycheck. Set it and forget it.
Immediately, right out of the gate, there's a huge psychological divide. Jake feels this massive sense of social pride, right? I mean, he has a physical, tangible asset he can actually drive past and say, hey, I own that. His friends are definitely impressed. But Marcus's investment, it's completely invisible. It's abstract and honestly kind of boring. He just gets a little confirmation email. Nobody's dropping their jaw at a dinner party when you bring up index funds. But listen, as we're going to see, these feelings deeply influence the financial realities they're both about to face.
Moving to Section 2, the real estate reality. Let's fast forward to year 3, where the fantasy of being a landlord totally slams into the harsh reality of a spreadsheet.
So for the first couple of years, Jake is living the dream. On paper, he's boasting to his buddies about the gross rent he's collected. Over $64,000 in 3 years. Subtract the mortgage, and he's calculating a pretty sweet gross cash flow of nearly $17,000. That is exactly the number people love to brag about at summer barbecues. But let's look a little closer at the true math. When we actually factor in $9,000 in property taxes, $4,500 in insurance, a $1,200 busted water heater, a $2,800 roof leak, and hey, a month where the property just sat totally empty, well, the math changes really fast.
So here's the crucial point. After 3 entire years of taking late-night phone calls, doing weekend showings, and basically working an unpaid part-time job as his own property manager, Jake's actual net cash flow is just $2,000 to $4,000. It's a tiny fraction of what he thought he'd be rolling in on day one.
But hold on, it is definitely not all bad news for Jake. He has one massive, game-changing advantage over Marcus, and it's called leverage. Leverage is basically using a small amount of your own money and a whole lot of the bank's money to control a massive asset. Because Jake used his $50,000 to control a $250,000 house, a really modest 3 to 4% annual appreciation has pumped his equity up to over $55,000. That is real, tangible wealth, generated almost entirely by using leverage to his advantage.
However, as your neutral advisor, I've got to step in and say this. Beginners absolutely must budget for the hidden realities of real estate. Vacancies happen. Routine maintenance is going to eat up 1 to 2% of the property value every single year for sure. And those big capital expenditures, things like a new roof or an HVAC system, those aren't ifs. They are guaranteed future costs that drop in heavy chunks. Listen, if you aren't putting aside a chunk of your rent every single month for those big ticket items, you aren't running an investment. You're running on luck. And trust me, luck always runs out.
On to Section 3, the power of compounding. While Jake is out there dealing with plumbing emergencies and changing locks, let's switch gears and check in on Marcus's completely invisible stress-free strategy. Over those exact same 3 years, Marcus hasn't spent a single Saturday managing his money. 0 phone calls, 0 emergencies. He's just relying on the pure mathematical magic of compounding, assuming an average historical return of about 10% for the total stock market. And compounding is just beautiful, isn't it? It's when the gains on your invested money start generating their own additional gains. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. Now, the reality of that compounding timeline starts off, well, agonizingly slow. In year 1, his account creeps from $50,000 to just $55,000. It really doesn't feel like much is happening. But look at year 7, and then look at year 10. By year 10, his portfolio is sitting between 165 and 180 grand. The compounding curve is really accelerating now. The gains on Marcus's earlier gains are creating more new wealth every single year than his original out-of-pocket cash ever did.
Which brings us to Section 4, the 20-year tie. Fast forward 2 whole decades, we reach the climax of our clients' journeys, and the data reveals something genuinely surprising about these drastically different paths.
Get this. By year 20, they are practically tied. Jake's property has appreciated nicely, his mortgage is mostly paid down, and his equity is sitting right around $450,000. Meanwhile, Marcus's invisible index fund portfolio, fueled purely by time and those consistent $300 monthly deposits, sits right at $440,000.
The grand totals? Almost mathematically identical. But the way they actually got there couldn't be more fundamentally different. Over 20 years, Jake took on hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. He dealt with tenant turnover, he patched leaky pipes, and he basically worked a part-time job to build that wealth. Marcus, on the other hand, he didn't lose a single night of sleep. He used extreme patience, and he literally just waited for his wealth to build itself.
Section 5, Unlocking the Secret Advantages. Now, if we stopped right there, you'd probably think, wow, index funds are the undisputed winner. But we need to point out the unique, hidden levers each of these investments has because they can completely change these long-term projections.
Let's start with Marcus's secret lever, the monthly contribution. If Marcus just bumped up his monthly index fund deposit by a tiny $200, taking it from $300 to $500 a month, that compounding multiplier would launch his 20-year portfolio up to nearly $600,000. He generates massive additional wealth without adding a single hour of extra labor to his life. Crazy, right?
But we have to talk about the brutal reality of the stock market too. It is not always perfectly smooth sailing. Market crashes are absolutely gut-wrenching. I mean, the total market dropped 37% in 2008 and 34% in a single month back in March 2020. If Marcus is watching his life savings freefall by tens of thousands of dollars in a matter of weeks, man, it takes intense emotional discipline to not panic sell and lock in those losses. Plus, index funds offer basically zero monthly cash flow to replace your income and absolutely no leverage or tax depreciation.
Now, let's flip back to real estate and look at its unique case. Real estate has some undeniable wealth-building superpowers. If you buy right, where your rent is 0.8 to 1% of the purchase price, the cash flow works immediately. You can do what's called house hacking, living in one unit while renting out the others to completely wipe out your own living expenses. You can use 1031 exchanges to infinitely defer paying capital gains taxes, and you get depreciation, which is a brilliant, completely legal tax shelter. But remember, these superpowers only work if you treat the property like a serious, well-oiled business.
So Section 6. Which path actually fits you? Ultimately, the honest data tells us something important. Neither path is inherently or universally superior to the other.
It all boils down to what kind of lifestyle and what kind of stress profile you want to sign up for. If you want simplicity, total diversification, and the ability to scale your wealth without adding a single ounce of complexity to your daily life, index funds are your best friend. But if you've got the time, the deep local market knowledge, and the grit to handle hands-on management and late-night emergencies, real estate can build wealth and utilize tax advantages in ways that stocks literally just can't replicate.
So, as you gear up to make your first major wealth-building decision, I want to leave you with a thought. The most important question you can ask yourself is not, which one wins on average? No. When you're looking at your time, your stress tolerance, and all those sneaky hidden costs, ask yourself, did you include everything? Because the plan that accounts for everything is the only one that actually works in the real world. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.